got my first bike when I was 3 years old. That thing got training wheels on it. It ain't count. I really remember my red and yellow mongoose that I had. Now, that was legit. That was the bike I really learned how to ride on. I had felt multiple times. For some reason, I couldn't get the whole steering, balancing, pedaling thing down. Now, most of you remember the first time you learned how to ride a bike. I'm sure you had a really huge fall. I had felt so hard, I scuffed my knee up really bad. With my mom teaching me how to ride my amazing new bike she bought me, this particular time she was helping me up, and she told me time and time again, over and over, get up and try again. Looking back at this moment, I failed to realize the lesson I should have learned from that experience. It was 2002. I was 12 years old in the 6th grade. I would walk from the old Franklin Middle School, where I attended, to our Old Town East home. My mom was a registered nurse at OSU East Hospital, less than a mile from where we lived. Before my father was involved in my life, it was just me and her. She did her best to provide for me. She would spend many years in the healthcare business, only to become a patient at that same very hospital. Earlier that year, Mom started experiencing severe abdominal pain. Now, for those of you who don't know what an appendix is, it's a small part of your intestine that, if it ruptures, can lead to a series of medical problems. She tried to see if the pain would go away, and it didn't. Her appendix ruptured. She had to be rushed to the hospital. Since Mom was also a diabetic, it only complicated the recovery process. Following her surgery, Mom still had some lingering symptoms, which prevented her to go back to work. During her time in the hospital, she didn't have anyone to assist her to make sure the household stayed together, especially when it came to making sure the bills were paid. As a result, she fell behind. She was able to keep her job, but it was the time that she needed to catch up on her health and her bills. She realized that she needed a couple months or more to truly get back on her feet. She understood that stressing about making sure the bills were paid wouldn't solve the issue when all she needed was time. That's when she made a decision that made an everlasting impact on my life. She decided we needed to live in a homeless shelter. Now, this was something I wasn't prepared for. What was it like to be homeless? What about my friends? There's no way I could tell them this. I mean, think about it. At 12 years old, you really don't anticipate being in these types of situations. All I really wanted to do was either play my PlayStation or go outside. So, at the time, the only thing important to me was my childhood, something I could no longer enjoy. I had no clue what was ahead of me. I had no clue how to stay balanced. I had no clue how to stay balanced. That's deep, right? So, the shelter is still there today on West Broad, not too far from Coastside. Now, at the time, I didn't realize this was a new situation for both of us. I guess I was too busy thinking about getting through the end of the school year and what my friends would think. I can only imagine what my mom was going through. Did her friends and coworkers know? Was this even a situation that we can get out of? As we walk into the shelter to check in and to fill out paperwork, I started to look around. I was quite surprised to see how many people actually lived here. This place smelled different. The beds were too close to each other. And there was really no true sense of privacy. My mother and I, we shared a twin-sized bed. And most of the time, she just slept on the floor so I could be comfortable. Now, as the weeks went on, I start seeing the same faces. I'm like, this is real. My mom would get frustrated because I would often ask her, when can we go home? She would reply, right now this is home, son. And this would frustrate me because I just wanted to be a regular kid. I just wanted to have fun and just, like I said, just like to play. And I would leave school just to come back to this place. So at the shelter, we got meals provided to us daily. And for a lot of folks, this is the only meal they got during the day. One day during lunch, we met a young lady and her 2 boys. Now, she had been in the shelter for over a year now and had yet to rebound. Her and my mom would talk quite often, mostly about their experiences, about their day, the current situation. What I noticed most is her son's behavior. Every day they would be outside the shelter, playing around, goofing off, having fun, as if they weren't in a misfortunate situation at all. I was confused. How could they be so naive? Now, what I didn't understand was, how could they play so joyfully when her mom was trying to get back on her feet and she was struggling? I was apprehensive even thinking about playing with these guys. I mean, they were just having too much fun. It was just so uncomfortable for me. So as the summer months went on, I started playing with them more. Start to ease up a little bit. I stopped thinking less about where I was in the shelter and more about being a kid, being myself. See, these kids, they didn't have materialistic things. They had each other. They had their mom. They weren't a victim of their situation. They learned from it and adapted to it. We spent nearly 6 months in the homeless shelter. It was one of the most defining moments in my life. Now, many people may see, when they see homelessness, may think people are just beggars, not even trying, they just gave up. Well, this is not the fact for most victims. In fact, once you become a homeless victim, you realize it's not as far away as you once thought. This was the case for my mother. She was able to rebound, catch up back on her bills, and get the house payments back on track. Fast forward 15 years later, the experience I had as a child is still with me today. I learned a lot about the relationship between me and my mother. I learned a lot about myself and about getting back up to achieve a goal. Among the fact that I've always had some type of sales job, I chose to be a realtor so I could help people. The fact that people will describe to you their reason to buy or rent is very interesting to me. So I ask them, what's your motivation to buy? Why do you want to rent? It's the responses I receive. Whether it's to start a family, bring structure or stability to their lives, or create additional stream of income, it's seldom about the physical property. A house is not a physical space which an individual can call their own. It's an instrument to help people achieve their goals or to provide for themselves or their families. This is the case for my mother as well. Understanding the process of helping people to get to their dreams, to home ownership, is something that I really enjoy. Obstacles are there for a reason. These events are in your life to make you a stronger individual. The lessons we learn groom us into the best versions of ourselves. Sometimes we cannot control the series of events that leads us into difficult times. Bad things happen. Things in this life will be taken from you, but nothing can take away what you've learned. Something as simple as learning how to ride a bike can teach us a life lesson that all of us can admire. My mother and I have simply fell off our bike. Now, all of us will have to learn how to ride this thing called life. There'll be bumps, there'll be bruises, there'll be frustrations, there'll be disappointments. But I promise you, if you get back on, there'll be successes and there'll be victories. So the next time you fall off your bike, just remember to get up and try again.